Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So, I thought I would do a unique video talking about what ways have I lived a more Islamic lifestyle since I've converted, converted, going on 3 years. And what I've noticed in lifestyle changes, all aspects, just examining, doing some self-reflection. And one of the ways that I've lived a more Islamic lifestyle is by avoiding remixing as much as possible. Some places it's almost unavoidable, but being a stay-at-home wife and mother has allowed me to avoid forced gatherings, such as you're working, they have a Christmas party, an office party. There's just certain things where at work you're sort of obligated and obliged to participate in group activities, and if you don't, it'll alienate you from your coworkers, and the managers, bosses, they're gonna see you as a liability, you're not a team player, antisocial. They have all sorts of slurs to call you. They have all sorts of ways in which they'll outcast you and really make you feel isolated because you're not part of the corporate culture. You're not celebrating the mission of the restaurant. And if you start looking at different businesses and their mission statements and stuff, you know, they really squeeze you in there like sardines with your corporate culture and your work family. So it can be hard to avoid situations where you're invited to an outing and you're expected to show up and participate and have a bit of charisma and whatnot. Some host Easter egg hunts. You know, it's hard to do. So me leaving the workforce, it was a way that helped me to adopt more Islamic rules concerning free mixing. And then my husband not asking me to go to any type of free mixing thing, and he doesn't go either, but there are some men who they go and then they bring their wife with them. It's a very common American thing. And so this has helped me, by not doing free mixing, to be less irritated by men and safer, because not every person there is safe. This has allowed me to stay out of other people's drama, focus more on what I need to do, and I'm less drained by having these sort of fake conversations that you have to do as small talk. And since I live in a liberal area, the small talk is very mentally exhausting because I have to dance around their feelings or their perspectives, and I have to self-police a lot. And I know they're liberals by their behavior, the clothes they wear. Like, some of them, they wear their slogans of their personality right on their sleeves, quite literally. Love is love, vote blah 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 blah, some political satire shirt. And also hairstyles, you know, green, blue, purple, pink. You get the gist of it, right? I see a cowboy, he may be a Democrat, but or a cattleman rather. If I see a cattleman, I usually assume, based on patterns, that he leans a certain way politically, right? So if you're in a highly liberal, progressive area, you know how the women are thinking. And yeah, I'm surrounded by girl bosses, but also women who use nannies. So, you know, we're gonna have a different perspective. But there are some housewives, except they are very gossipy and they really love wine. And so, you know, I don't go around with them too much, but even those housewives, they go to free mixing events. You know, and a bored housewife who's got too much time on her hands and free mixes with other men is quite dangerous. For the husband, at least. For her, she could look at it as, oh, I get to, have my cake and eat it too. Further, by not free mixing, I don't have to be subjected to the grossness of men. As in, when they're checking you out, or where they say inappropriate jokes. Because you gotta remember, not everyone has good manners. There are some good men who, they keep it kosher in the presence of a woman. But there are others who think the more vulgar they are, the more they peacock, that this is a way into your mind. And that works with some women, no doubt. But when you're trying to live an Islamic lifestyle, you don't necessarily want to hear talks about sin and aggression, fornication, gambling, partying, and stuff like that. And some men, they could care less if a woman is hearing what they say, And so by avoiding free mixing as much as possible, I'm not forced to interact with people I don't want to, because the older I get, I'm more of a hermit, and I just like to people watch and listen, and I am very careful with who I engage with conversation in the real world, just because some people, they're so touchy about certain topics. And if you have to see those people constantly, it makes it very awkward. Online, it's quite different, isn't it? But in person, that's different. So another thing is dress code. No more yoga pants. No more summer dresses. Leggings. Activewear. That's like spandex. You get the point. And covering up even if it's hot outside. Right? So doing it for the sake of Allah. And by adopting the dress code, now aside from like hands, face, eyebrows, oh, you want a burqa, okay, aside from like, oh, you have to wear gloves and a burqa, like aside from the issues of dispute, just the basics of loose clothing, right? There's all the different names, jilbab, but you get the gist. A loose, non-shape conforming dress, right? It's kind of like a dress, it literally looks to me like a dress. So, like the thobe style, just it looks like a dress. I'll just say it's a dress. But the covering of the hair and loose clothing and the clothing reaching to your wrist, right? Just doing that has allowed me to be more free. Now I know there will be some women who are like, how dare you? Don't you know there's women who, they get acid thrown on their face if they show a patch of convertible hijab hairstyles, like they got some up here or something. Okay, well, that's very sad that those women are abused and treated that way. But I'm speaking from an American perspective, growing up in the 90s, where BET, MTV, Nickelodeon, and others pushed lewd behavior and subversive antics concerning clothing, alright, and how women should behave in public, alright? So, growing up in a hypersexualized culture, and then adopting the Islamic standard of apparel modesty, because I understand Haya has verbal modesty and, bashfulness and certain topics you don't broach, and if you do, you word it in a special way, I'm aware. But I'm getting at apparel modesty, and adopting that has allowed me to, someone will disagree with this, I never had a low self-esteem, but it actually has risen it, because I no longer give a damn about any woman peacocking her Brazilian butt lift in front of me. I don't have to compete anymore. I'm all natural in my body, and I'm not a hunchback of Notre Dame. But I don't need to prove it to anyone anymore. I mean, even with loose clothing, you can still see what's there and what's not, right? But not to the same degree as someone who's literally bare skin, like their clothes look like they're painted. some of these OF women who go to the gym, right? So with the loose clothing, it has changed the way in which people treat me. Now, I've have problems with teenage boys being disrespectful in terms of saying anti-Islamic slurs. Okay, that's a problem, but that's a case of fatherlessness. But with grown adult men, they really leave me alone, don't bother me. And with the older, like grandmas and older women, they treat me with a lot of respect, and I really enjoy that. And children, they're just kind of fascinated by the loose clothing and the hair being covered. Their moms got cleavage out, pointy high heels that look like they want to, kick someone in the groin. It's just a different vibe. So when they see someone like covered and it's different, it's like, who's that, mama? Like, I see this from children, and they're very sweet and kind. And they get it like a form of dawah in that way. And it's more memorable. And I really think that's fantastic. Because some kids, it's the first time they've ever seen a Muslim woman, let alone a woman fully covered, in a non-vogue, sexual libertine way, right? Now, the dress code, it does feel more convenient. I don't have to do fast shopping or stick with the trends. It's a heavy burden lifted off. Before, I used to spend money on different clothes, styles, stuff like that. But now it's more in a frame, and then I operate within that frame versus looking for trends of different pockets of influence. And just the way it feels to be in the Islamic clothing, holding your newborn baby, or talking to a child about life, talking about existential dread, talking about the soul. When you're dressed the part, there's something psychological to that. If a doctor is talking about medicine in an MBA uniform, he could, but it's a little bit different. It's like you're dressed in athletic gear when you're talking about something else, right? But when you dress in a way that conforms to what you preach, it solidifies it more within you, I'd argue. Because you're showing your faith outwardly, not just inwardly. And for a woman to retire her sexual adornment and all the fancy ways, like braiding, I used to do like braids and then put beads, like these really cool Viking beads in my hair. It looked really nice. It did, because my hair's really long. But retiring all that and accepting the drapery of the Islamic garments, it changes what your brain is focusing on. I don't mirror check. Before I was Muslim, like, I would wear, tight clothes. Then when you go into a mall or you pass by a mirror, it's a strange feeling of you pull your pants up tighter, and then like you have this sort of self-checking constantly, like how a bird is grooming their feathers, and it's quite distracting. And when women talk, they like touch themselves, fix their hair, they show these outwardly body language of insecurity, even if they're quite beautiful, because they're constantly trying to be that model. In the Islamic garment, the drapery blocks off a lot of the evil eye, the wickedness of women, and it makes you remember what path you are on in life. And I really enjoy that. It's a reminder of the afterlife, that you have to stick to a code of conduct. You're wearing the uniform, you obey the uniform. And dressing how you want to be addressed is important. If I want now feminists will argue, well, if a woman is dressing really ghetto and ratchet, she has human dignity and you can't disrespect her. But At the same time, those women will spend a lot of money on Botox, nails, hair salons, fancy makeups to dress to impress. So if you have to dress nice to a job interview so that the employer sees something about you, then why can we not then say the same concerning dressing in an Islamic fashion is going to change the way in which people treat you? You see what I'm trying to get at here? Their offices have dress codes. Workplaces have uniforms. Schools have dress codes. Islam has a dress code. And the religion is voluntary. And disciplining the inner desire to peacock and flaunt yourself to men sexually is difficult for a lot of women. And it's almost beyond their comprehension that that is even possible. Nor do they want to. They're always hunting for a new guy. Even if they can see in the mirror that they are more weathered and not full of vigor, they still have this grasping desire to be wanted by someone. Even if they have everything, it's a sort of greed. They're treating themselves as bait in order to get something else, never fully being satisfied. So it's a distraction. Extensive focus on beauty is a distraction. And the way women can hurt each other when they expose to each other's bodies, that women are brutal to each other. That's why they use filters, like really strong AI filters. There's some filters that it's insane how different the person looks without it, and then a makeup on top, so they don't even like their own selves in the way they look fresh out of the shower. So it's very difficult for such people to understand why a woman would retire herself. So a way in which I have changed and adopted more Islamic practices into my life is the dress code. And I really enjoy it. I wish I would have discovered it sooner, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most high, the most wise, and Him will return. And so I know I came to Islam at the right time. At a time that was when my brain was maybe more accepting, because I had seen enough. I had gotten to see the dark underbelly of Western liberal behavior, of indecency, decadence, hedonism, stuff like that, right? So the dress code, it's just marvelous. And I used to get all these compliments for my hair. They would say I look like Rapunzel, like perfect curls, shine. And people would compliment me a lot on my hair. And my funny part is my husband said that's his favorite thing about me is my hair. And so covering that up and denying it to the world and only letting him to enjoy it, and my children obviously in my home, but and those who are permitted, you get my point, but to outside men in the real world. And then further, the Islamic clothing helps me to age with grace. I don't cling to wanting to constantly look young. I know that that's a thing where a woman wants to be like Blanche from the Golden Girls, still slinging it at that age. But I'd rather be just a wise old lady, cooking, being with parents, my children and grandchildren, and not trying to play the scene. And the Islamic clothing helps you to let go of your own ego and your vanity. And I see the wisdom of it. But I am fully aware that some women don't want to cut off their allure because they don't want to stay with who they're with. They don't love themselves to the extent where they don't have to prove their beauty to other people for validation. Because we like beautiful things as women. We judge beauty. It's a paradox, just philosophically, the purpose of beauty. And beauty helps women have self-preservation. And when you cover it, you feel like, some people feel like they're not going to be preserved. They feel like there won't be a knight to save them because he can't see their beauty. So it's a different mode of thinking. And if we actually pay attention to how many stunning women still get cheated on, still get abused. Even that guy, P. Diddy, he was beating on a woman who was quite beautiful. She was pretty. And she took it for years in silence. And then later she left him and got a better man and a family. Right? So beautiful women sometimes assume their beauty will keep the beast from mauling them, but it's just not true. And so when you realize that protection comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that our beauty is a present to our husbands and a genetic gift to our children and a test and trial for us, you treat it differently. You know? Some see it as a smothering garment that shames you. I see it more as a garment that graces you, that you are a present to be unwrapped, and you don't have to be eye candy for anyone, and that it is a powerful testimony to deny them that. It's very fascinating when you just examine it fully. The hijab is a very large conversation. There are women who hate their clothing and idolize the fashion of America. And there are men who reward them for dressing like that. And then those men turn around and mock them and say they won't marry them. Or those women are so occultic, they get a man and they enslave him and they hate him and then they cheat on him anyways. So, you know, there's a lot of paradoxes on this planet, but it's wonderful how adopting the Islamic dress code, the Islamic code of not free mixing, has created so much more peace in my life. When I was a former gang member, how you dressed was a signal to other gang members. It was a secret language that not everyone knew. And it could bring you trouble, and it could bring you security. So dressing as a Muslim woman, I examine it in this unique way as to sort of keep men away from me. And men, they treat you with a lot more respect when they see you as a sophisticated, mellow, polite, religious woman, rather than a loudmouth hoochie with her tits out who's being combative and argumentative. It is quite fascinating. The honor, the way in which I see the honor of the Islamic female clothing warms my heart. And we have worlds changing. So many Western women are craving to go back to covering up in a true modesty culture. And then you have people from other nations who they've always kind of had covering up and they want to trade. So it's almost like we're switching spots. They don't really get the mental load that comes with constantly trying to be a Barbie doll. Men like to look at it, no doubt. But once a woman realizes that she can never keep the male gaze, there's this sort of inner turmoil that happens. And for me, I think the female clothing of Islam allows us to really have a stronger soul. Because we don't need to have the name brands. We don't need to body check constantly and worry about how round our butts look in a certain thing, or anything concerning the voluptuousness of the female form. It's the drapery in and of itself is like a form of spiritual beauty. And covering up the beastly lust externally helps you to discipline it internally. When police officers wear their uniform, it's like it's go time. You're not in your slacks at home. When you are at the pool, some men will take their shirt off and relax. The way in which you dress affects how your mind is going to think at that moment, many times. And so, the female Islamic clothing, by the same extension, makes me feel more spiritual. But I get it. There's a lot of women who, after they have kids, they're very insecure in their body, so they want to bounce back real quick and then show the world how hot they look after. This is a very common pattern. And a lot of them will pay other people to take care of their kids so they could be at the gym all day. And then they want to flaunt their body to men to be a MILF. Some women have that prerogative. But I think it's quite fascinating that a Muslim woman, before and after children, keeps the same attire. She doesn't feel the compulsion to get external validation, where she gets it from herself, truly from herself, and from her husband. It's marvelous. It's quite marvelous. But again, I'm very aware of how many ex-Muslims, murtads, apostates, and radical feminists, boss babes, and liberal progressive Muslims will not understand where I'm coming from. But in my opinion, when you tune into your spiritual nature as a woman, and you just look at the history of modesty, and you look at how it slowly was eroded, and how many layers of clothing women used to actually wear, even when they had those funny cages they used to wear around their waist that expanded their dresses. It looks like a funny little... it's like a cage, and you couldn't see the shape of their legs, and they were fully covered with a big large hat up to the neck. All the way to the sleeves were frilly, so you really just saw like a part of their hair that was in a very pretty spiral bun, and their hands in their face. They were still very covered up. So to me, covering the body doesn't say you're ashamed of it, but rather you don't need the gawking of a drooling buffoon male or the winks from a lesbian or something bizarre. You just don't need it. And it's nice not tempting other women's husbands. It's quite fascinating. When you adorn the Islamic clothing, you're acknowledging the respect for other women's marriages, and you acknowledge that men are quite weak with their desire for the female form, and you're helping them to not sin, and you're helping the wife and husband not fight. It's just a wonderful thing all around, and I enjoy it very much. And I'm not forced to smile at anyone, and it just really changes the way in which people approach me, speak to me. It's been wonderful, except like I said, for a lot of teenage boys who they'll say "Oh, Akbar," it's very strange. But this is just bad teenage boys who are a nuisance. And I've had no women be rude. And there was an older man who told me "You look ridiculous" when I was 9 months pregnant, 8-9 months pregnant. That was a bit scary. And then there was a teenage boy who followed me on a scooter while I was pregnant, and he said 9/11, 9/11, 9/11, and he could throw rocks, he could assault me. I was by myself, and there wasn't anyone on the trail. It's pretty scary. So when it's younger men who have no discipline, you can be in some trouble. That's why fathers are important. But for the most part, I like the mindset that clothing gives me, and it has changed my mindset a lot. And I hope you can see my perspective. I know there's a lot of propaganda out there, and I know there's different cultures and how they like colors or patterns or whatever. That's not my point. My point is just the basics of loose clothing covering the hair. Nothing like to your wrists, to your ankles. You get my point. It's just remarkable. No more cleavage, no camel toes, no thighs, none of that. It's fascinating because how many men have been caught taking pictures of women's skirts? With long Islamic clothing, you protect yourself from a lot of perverts. And I would say there's a great deal of men who are perverts. And there's nothing wrong with denying them the joy of the visuals of your body. It's fascinating, really. You can't change them with lecturing them with feminist essays. They will be who they will be. So, wearing loose clothing and not giving them the privilege is quite sophisticated and quite classy. And even when you look at the Roman and Greek women, I understand there was a time where some had more exposure, but there was also a time where they wore loose clothing and sometimes didn't show their face, and they were carried in a carriage. It's fascinating when you just look how high-class women were treated and expected to dress. But Shaitan always tries to undress the woman and parade her as fish bait. Let me know what you think. These are just 2 examples. I'll create more, but these are the most prominent that I wanted to share with you. Take care, and if you'd like to support my work and read more about what I write, or message me if you want to help, if you need help creating a menu for your private event, like you're hosting a baby shower or an Eid party, something like that, whatever it is, and you want to discuss, appetizers or some culinary questions, feel free to reach out. Also, if you want to talk about postpartum depression, you need someone to vent to who isn't gonna judge you in a way of making you feel like it's impossible to find a solution. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna tell you to use drugs and get on antidepressants, but rather sometimes just discussing the issue can help a lot of women. Or you want to talk about Islam, or you have questions about the highs and lows of faith. Whatever it is. Or maybe you're a gang member a woman who's trying to leave and you don't know how. You don't know how to let go of that identity or the behavior patterns that come from that lifestyle. Whatever it is that you think that I can help you with, reach out through the blog. It prevents a lot of trolls. I won't click links. I won't download any documents. But you can message me there and I'll try to do my best, inshallah, to help you find a solution that works for you. And sometimes just bouncing ideas off of people can really help you formulate even more ideas, right? Take care. Until next time. MashaAllah, look how many are in there working on this flower. Like they're having a grand old time. Subhanallah. Absolutely miraculous.